So welcome to the inaugural AI and Education Conference at Stanford. I think that merits a round of applause, if I may ask the crowd to... And good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us. I'm Isabel Howe. I'm the Executive Director of the Stanford Accelerator for Learning. And as many of you know already, the Stanford Accelerator for Learning is a university-wide effort to accelerate solutions to the most pressing issues facing learners. I would like to start by thanking two people without whom this event would not have happened. The first one is our visionary dean, Dean Schwartz, who is here in the front, and you will hear from him in a few moments, who really was the mind behind this idea of convening all faculty and researchers and students working at the intersection of education and AI now several months ago. And then the other person who is with us too is our senior advisor, Glenn Kleiman, who has been working alongside us on pulling this event together, and really a big, big thank you to him as well. So when we started thinking about this event, we thought it would be maybe 30 people. And then we started to put a list together and then got quickly to 100 or 120 or 150. And suddenly we have 200 people who have signed up. So it's really interesting to see the interest in this topic. And we are really hoping to obviously galvanize this energy and build on it, and beyond this event to have great solutions and intersections among all of you who are working on this, and hear from all of you around this topic. But I will turn to my great colleague Hamad, who has been a terrific partner at HAI.
Thank you so much, Isabel. My name is Ahmed Rushdi. I manage the research communities for HAI. And as you guys know, HAI is very invested in building communities around research, policy, education, and partnerships with industry, where we can envision AI being very helpful and supportive of humanity in general. As Isabel has mentioned, this is a great opportunity for both of us to collaborate. Has been a great venue for us to work together. I want to start by thanking John Robichaud, who's our Director of Education, who did an amazing job putting this event together, and Casey, our event manager, who will be the go-to person if you have any questions today. And as you know, we would like to build a community around AI plus education that is not only attending today, but also towards some activities. So as you will hear through the day, and as Isabel will talk later in the day, we have a specific project, a specific seed grant program that has been just announced. And we would like to make sure that all of you learn about it, get that an opportunity during the brainstorming sessions to form teams, ask questions, and get any help that you need to form your team towards submissions to this proposal, to the seed grant. And of course, if we are in a generative AI conference, we cannot miss the chance to write the introduction, which is everything I'm saying using ChatGPT. So I have to admit, everything that I said was written by ChatGPT. I just asked ChatGPT, please write me the introduction for this conference. And then for just more fun, I asked another OpenAI product to tell me how these brainstorming sessions would look like in the afternoon. As you know, there are a lot of products that have been coming out from different modalities, including text, image, language, speech, video. So getting through all of these and understanding their impact on society and our different communities is our goal for today. So today, the very high-level structure that we will do throughout the summit is we'll have three major panels, one on generative AI for education, panel one on envisioning AI enriched classrooms, and one on Stanford and EdTech collaborations. And we will have two possibilities for roundtables, and then a very structured thematic brainstorming sessions where you will have the opportunity to pick a table outside, and we'll explain more later, to choose where you would like to participate. And this is broken into two sessions, so you will have a chance to participate into more than one table. Finally, at the end of the day, we'll have a fireside chat with John Mitchell and a few other visitors. And to get started with the big picture overview, I'm going to pass it back to Isabel.
Yeah, and I have the great pleasure of introducing our host for the event, Dean Dan Schwartz, who in many ways doesn't really need an introduction as a dean of the Graduate School of Education and our faculty director of the Stanford Accelerator for Learning. I would just say a few things that I really love about his background. One is that he was a teacher in many settings. He taught in rural Kenya, he taught in Alaska, and he also taught in urban environment in South LA, which I think really makes him a not only just one of the really incredible leaders here at Stanford, but also someone who is always goes back to what are the roots for teaching and learning. And I really, really love that in Dean Schwartz. The other thing that I think we should also note is that obviously Dean Schwartz is one of our national experts on this topic of AI and education. So we are really blessed to have him at Stanford, broadly speaking, but certainly on as the host for this conference. And his work in particular, as you all know, probably on teachable agents is one of the very, very interesting area of the intersection of creativity and artificial intelligence. So with that, I will give Dan the mic for a presentation on his thoughts on the big thoughts that he has on where we are.
Okay. Thank you, Isabel. That would have been an appropriate introduction about 25 years ago. When the AI I was doing was purely symbolic. So thanks to everyone for coming. Do I get a clicker? Okay. So do I get another hand? Do I get another hand? Okay. Okay. There we go. So I want to thank you for making this a great event today. The reason we organized this event, because nobody knows just how many other people at Stanford are also working on AI and education. So this is a chance for everybody to share and hopefully build a head of steam and find out who else is around. Before I get rolling, I thought I'd briefly remind you why learning is so important. So I'd like you to take a look at this image. It shows the sheer joy of learning and teaching. And so of all the species, only humans teach. Evolution made it a basic satisfaction. And of course, which button? Help! Which there's a lot of technical glitches. This is the first time it's been the clicker. Do you have to turn it on? Okay. Oh. Okay, we're going to do it that way. So I thought I'd sort of do a grand opening, right, and really set a jumbo stage here. But before I get started, okay. That's what happens when you don't have a podium. I just want to remind you, learning is one of the single most important levers available for improving the human condition. It's correlated with almost every positive outcome you would care for. It's an investment by society for society. It's not evenly distributed. So people often want to hear a theory of change when you're doing something new. And I appreciate the urge. Of course, people argue about what counts as a theory, and they argue about what counts as a change. So I decided to skirt the matter and talk about what I believe are the conditions for transforming learning, which are rare and in place right now. So my starting case study, we can consider a profound change that occurred over 150 years, the scientific revolution. So the revolution started with Ptolemy, who described a perfectly organized heaven rotating around an imperfect Earth. Copernicus also argued for a perfectly organized heaven, the theory of perfect geometric solids, except the sun was at the center. From there, Kepler proposed that the planetary orbits were not perfect geometric shapes, but rather followed an elliptical path defined by the sweep law. Then finally, Newton described the common causal mechanism that regulated both perfect heavens and the imperfect. So what were the conditions that enabled this revolution? There were a lot, but one key one was data. So this is an image of Tycho Brahe's meticulous recording of the positions of stars and planets. Brahe doesn't get the headlines he deserves. He recorded the data that enabled Kepler to make a new thing. The second advancement was the creation of new technology. This is an image of an early telescope, which advanced our abilities to see the heavens. And of course, there are many other new technologies like the steam turbine, blood transfusion, kind of a scary thought in the 1600s, and the pendulum clock. This image shows the trial of Galileo, where a scientific explanation of the world based on empirical evidence set against a religious one, based on the rise of empiricism. Then finally, ships navigated by the stars. With the expansion of sailing around the world, there was a strong need to improve navigation. So what does the scientific revolution of the 1600s have to do with why we're here today? These same conditions for change are appearing in education. Improved data, new technologies, the rise of evidence-based decisions, and new practical needs. So I'd like to provide. So education has always been data thin. Once a year tests, try to get control of things. But data is finally starting to flow. They support continual improvement, and they can reveal what even a trained eye can see. Courtesy of Professor Chris Peach, the moving circles you see on the right are 500,000 students around the world solving the same computer programming problem. Each node is a different line of code that students might write, and you can see clusters of students. I hate AI and technology. No, I'm going to talk about the good and the bad, the arms race between. Do I get to go over 10? I get 2 extra. I get something. Okay. So this will teach you. If you can, always run it off your own computer. Okay. Conditions. Tycho Brahe gets more credit. Ships were crashing into the Spanish coast. PowerPoints were crashing. Okay, so each node here is a different line of code, and that students might write, and you can see clusters of students moving between lines of code, going backwards and forwards. When they reach the green circle, they've solved the problem. So with this precision data at scale, we can figure out what I hate you. I hate you, not you, not the people. Yeah. Sorry. We're just gonna take the time. What's that? Just skip to the next slide. That's a good idea. That's That's pretty funny. Nobody move. You might break it. Chris, you take responsibility for this. That was your animation. Okay. 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 A second game changer is technology. Technology offers the prospect of universal access to A+ learning experiences, and it creates fundamentally new ways of teaching. And I want to emphasize this. A lot of AI is just going to automate really bad ways of teaching. So think about it as a ways of creating new types of teaching. So this is an image of a computer simulation, part of the freely available PhET library of science simulation, led by our Nobel laureate, Carl Wyman, who's jointly appointed in physics and education. Learning through digital simulations barely existed 20 years ago. It is really something new under the sun. If used well, students learn science through PhET simulations have gone to scale with roughly 250 million simulation runs a year. Many schools, this was a lifeline during COVID. I understand that the country of Colombia in particular was a huge adopter. And so this made it possible for them to continue teaching science. The next example is particularly important. The rise of empiricism in education is very important. Currently, education is dominated by homemade remedies and historical accidents handed down from generation to generation. I don't know why we use word problem. So I can hear the common refrain. I was taught that way and I turned out okay. I never say it, but there's a lot of people for whom it did not work so well. And if I dare say, you might have turned out even better. So the new empiricism emphasizes the mechanisms of learning, which makes it possible to address problems that were previously tolerated because it was the way we always did it. One of my favorite examples involves sleep. In the United States, school days start very early for young adolescents. This was largely driven by the need to optimize bus schedules, so the same buses could be used for elementary and high school students going to different schools. It was hard to break away from this historical accident, even though there were many complaints by all ages. Ultimately, Stanford faculty, including Rafael Palaio, demonstrated that adolescents were not sleeping enough. While the neuroscience revealed the significance of sleep for learning, sleep is when we consolidate memory so that learning sticks. Learning is a 24-hour. So what Rafael and others showed is that the adolescents were not getting enough sleep. The evidence finally drove change. Starting this year in California, schools are starting later for adolescents. So this was the rise of empiricism. There's also an analog for the need for better navigation in the 1960s. It's the need for new kinds of learning. So let me just show you something. I've got it here. How many people know what this is? Very good. Very good. This is a slide rule. My students in my classes say they vaguely remember their parents had one. Now they say they think their grandparents have one. That hurts. The slide rule was invented during the scientific revolution based on the development of logarithms. I spent a lot of weeks in school learning how to use it. It's an amazing tool, but my hard-earned knowledge is completely obsolete unless there's a shortage of silicon. This change in what the educated student needs to know about took about 400 years past the 1600s. The rate of change is accelerating. So Alexa, which could understand a limited set of words and phrases and requests, was launched about 8 years ago. Now, Stanford and Mina Lee helped to develop co-author. The black text was written by a person. The green text was written by. This is old news as of about 2 weeks ago, ChatGPT. So what should the future student learn in a writing class if the computer can do it so well? It's hard to say if the technology continues to progress. So given a moving target of skills and abilities, mastery is not the right paradigm. We simply can't predict what people will need to know except for very narrow, repetitive situations. We need to emphasize preparing people to continually learn as times and knowledge changes. So here is an example of a blue circle from a local school district describing what their graduates will learn. This is very, very common in all the schools. Notice how the school is focusing on things that prepare people to learn, collaborate, and participate in society. There's no mention of math or science or even reading achievement. This is a sea change. Mastery, which once dominated our theorizing, is dead. The need for a scientific revolution is upon. So a key question is, how can universities accelerate the societal benefits of learning research? So universities were not the seat of the scientific revolution in the 1600s. They were largely protecting existing dogma. After the development of germ theory, it took about 50 years before universities taught doctors to wash their hands. So how can we use universities and their phenomenal capacity for research and convening to accelerate change? The Stanford Learning Accelerator proposal is to build in 3 features from the start: a learner-centered approach, a combination of science and solution design, in partnership with stakeholders and providers. Here, I will just focus on combining science and design. So the model of bench to bedside, where there's a pipeline from basic research to applied outcomes, has not succeeded very well in education. An alternative approach is to infuse efforts with both science and design. So this is important. Successful educational products often have very appealing design. For instance, take a look at this screenshot. Very nice color. It draws on popular culture. It also uses an appealing play pattern and a strong reward system. But it is quite disappointing. So what is the interpretation of 4 fish times 2 fish? If it were 4 fish plus 2 fish, I think I could understand. But 4 fish times 2 fish, do the 4 fish breed with 2 fish and make 8 fish? Right? So this design inadvertently teaches children to ignore the meaning of mathematics. Design is better when it includes knowledge from the sciences of learning. And of course, the sciences of learning also need to design to render knowledge into a usable and easily adoptable form. So recently, a colleague wanted to develop a survey for middle school children to screen for attentional issues. Ironically, the survey included over 100 very long questions. So this just isn't going to work for this age, especially for children with attentional issues. So we help them design something better by having them meet with middle school teachers who are experts at designing effective classroom activity. We need science and design expertise to work together from the outset. So Stanford can drive this inflection up. So this brings me to why we are here. We're at an inflection point in what a research university can do to improve all lives through learning, and not just its undergraduates. COVID has heightened attention and experimentation. Game changers are already making inroads in previously intractable problems. Global pressures are growing to improve learning, whether in poor countries that will be the home to the majority of children by 2050, or for millions of people displaced by technology, natural disaster, political upheaval. So Stanford can drive this inflection upward. We have unbelievable talent in solution design, with HAI leading the way. We also have superb talent in the sciences of learning distributed across the university, and the Accelerator for Learning is mobilizing. And so what's better than joining them here today? I want to say there is no near equivalent of this at any other university. It really reflects Stanford's optimism. It's rigorous, it's daring, it's relevant. I hope you enjoy the day. Thank you.